Bloody hell, finally I'm on. I had to download it. Zoom. Okay, I know there was a little bit of French speaking on the call.
Morning, morning.
So I tried to put on a little bit of French radio for you guys.
I just had to wash the food now.
But as it was getting close to 11 o'clock, obviously it's time for ad breaks and then news. So
It's upstairs.
came with no music because of that. So I apologize if anyone thought, why is there French music all of a sudden? But there's nothing wrong with a little bit of culture, guys. That's a good thing. Good morning to you, and I hope everyone is well. It's a beautiful day. I'm actually in France. I'm calling in from France today, so it's nice to see everybody. The weather's beautiful here, and it's nice to see some familiar faces. And we've got a very special guest today with us, a gentleman who you may have seen before, called Mark. And it's great to have him on the call today. And I haven't seen him for a while, so Mark, I hope you're well.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Hello, can you hear
Let
me?
me just turn the volume up to make sure you guys can hear me. Yeah, so guys, just the usual setup. Obviously, we'll hand over to Mark shortly. I know Mark has a presentation as well, and I'm sure it's got a great session for you, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Okay, so Mark, if you're ready, we will go ahead. Your screen has frozen though, so Mark, let me know if you can hear me. Okay, I'm going to send Mark a little message because I don't think he can hear us. Mark, you there?
I'm here, Ross. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Your screen just froze for a second, but yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Got your presentation as well, so let me know when you need it and I'll share the screen.
Yeah, brilliant. I think I'm going to have to do a bit of a radical change because my internet's suffering a bit outside. So
Okay.
that's okay. That's okay. We can do a little indoor session. That's not a problem. Hi, guys. Welcome to everyone on the call. I hope you're okay. Yeah, I just wanted to do a little bit of a sort of theory session to start with. And then move that on to some practical work. I will try and get in the garden. Everything's set up out there, but failing that, that's okay. We'll do something inside. So yeah, Oscar, have you got the first slide there, please? Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, this is me, Mark Rivers, UEFA licensed coach. I'm coaching currently for the English Federation, the English Football Association. This is somewhere I've been for the past 10 years. And then prior to that, I've worked at a host of different professional football clubs all up and down the country and abroad as well, different countries. So I suppose what I want to do is just share my insight with you in a theory sense, and then, as I said, move that on to some practical skills and demonstrations that perhaps you can share with your friends and colleagues. Got the next one, Ross? Okay, yeah, this is my pathway, which I spoke about. So some clubs on there that you might recognise, clubs that you might not recognise, but yeah, in all different forms really. Community trusts, which you may know of. Lots of football clubs have these now. I've worked in academies as well, so the elite players, anyone that's got any kind of aspirations of making it in the professional game. Any questions surrounding that towards the end, you can throw my way. And obviously, the pinnacle for me personally is working for England, the governing body of this country. So yeah, as I said, that's where I am currently. If you move it on, Os, I think I wanted to do a little bit of icebreaker with you just to start. And it's just a bit of a spot the ball, if you're familiar with spot the ball. If you move it on again, Os, yeah, so this is the first one. I can't see the chat function there, Ross, you'll have to tell me, but Yeah, it's just about having a little go at where you think the ball might be. Give yourself a point if you get the correct answer. I'll give you like 10 seconds at each slide. And then a bonus point if you can guess the two countries. Have a go. Okay, we've revealed the answers, I say.
Mark, it's sort of quite fiddly to sort of go back and forth. So because we've got because we've got small numbers, maybe people can call out their answers. Is that?
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
What do you think, guys?
I think it might be B. I changed my mind. I think it might be B. Portugal beat Spain.
Oh, okay. Go on, Enos, what is it?
You're asking me. Oh, you're going to the next slide. Sorry.
Can you move it on? The answer's on the next slide, yeah.
Yeah.
So Iran v Portugal, B. I'll tell you what, Os, we'll do one more of these and then we'll just move it on if they're a bit fiddly.
Okay.
Good one. So again, shout the answers out. Where's the ball for 1 point? And then for a bonus point, who are the two teams in action? When you're ready.
Is one USA and one Uruguay? I mean Argentina.
Oh, Argentina's, that's one.
Is it Argentina and Iceland? And I think the ball is E.
Okay, let's have a look. I'll say if we can. Argentina, Iceland, B. Wow, brilliant. Okay, Os, if you can skip through these ones. Okay, so have a look at this slide. And obviously I want you just to have a little play around and think about what direction the tube's going. But also, whilst I'm doing these little exercises, just have a think to yourself, what's the purpose? Why might Mark be showing us these slides and doing this as an activity beforehand? So again, shout out. Who can see it going back under the bridge, coming out from the bridge? What can you see?
I can see it going out.
Okay. Who can see it going both ways?
I can see it going both ways, but I think it's going out.
Okay. You should be able to make it go both ways, back under the bridge and coming out from the bridge. Okay. What's next, I'll say? Okay. Anything you can see in the rose other than the rose itself? And whilst you're looking, I'll just explain why I put this one up. So imagine when you're playing in, we're talking about football on here, but any other sporting activity, because a lot of the movements that we'll discuss in a minute in football are what we call transferable skills. So they transfer across to different sports as well. And I suppose my point is, especially in football, in these invasion games, there's football, basketball, hockey, things like that, where I'm protecting one area, one zone, one goal, and attacking the other one. I need to be very, very observant. And if I'm just having my focus on the ball itself, then there might be a problem. I need to be looking 1, 2, 3 moves ahead, maybe. I need to be thinking and planning and plotting what I might be doing even before that ball's at my foot, even before. So it's about really looking at the whole thing, the whole picture. So can anyone see anything else other than a lovely, beautiful red rose? Shout it out if you can see anything else. 5 seconds.
I think there might be a bee in there.
Oh, let's have a look.
Like the black of it, in the black of it.
Okay, we need to go forward 2 slides, I think, now. So back to the rose, and there should be another one after that. Are you there, Ross, or is it frozen? Hello?
Hi there, Mark. I'm not too sure where Osai might have gone.
Okay, that's fine.
He'll be back shortly. So perhaps,
Let's move
can we move on?
Yeah, no problem. So the last little bit before we get into the technical practice, we're just having a look at the makeup of a footballer. So those slides really were just to get you thinking outside the box, more of a rounded approach really of football rather than that technical side of the ball at your feet. So the game that we're involved in, this football match, this football game, is actually made up primarily of these 4 corners. So if you think about it, you've got the technical corner, the green box is the psychological box, then we've got the yellow physical box, and then lastly we've got the blue social box. So if you think about all of your favourite players, and without going into the chat box, I'm sure the Messis and Ronaldos and players like that all spring to mind. Just have a think about the attributes, the key attributes that they will need and require that you could actually write down in that box. So one example might be things like passing. So hopefully you'd all agree that these players, these top players, need a good range of passes, different types of passes, short passes, long passes, passes with different parts of their feet also. If anybody on the call has ever played futsal before, it's like an indoor version of football, 5-a-side. But a lot of our favourite players at the minute have probably grown up playing football. The South Americans, Brazilians, the Spanish, even the goalkeepers like David De Gea. When I watch David De Gea play, he makes lots of different shapes that actually are derived from the sport of futsal. So my point is, yeah, different parts of their feet as well that they might use. So in technical, we might start putting things like shooting, we might put heading, we might put control, we might put dribbling. What else might we put in there? Turning. All of those lovely things that you might do even without noticing. So then we just drop down into the yellow physical box here. And these were the movements that I sort of alluded to before when I spoke about transferable skills. Okay, so we start looking now at backwards movements, forwards. We look at things like hopping. And even hopping itself is one that throws people out a little bit because you think, do I really hop in football? Well, actually, if you think of someone like Ronaldo with that really low centre of gravity and the way that he pretends to go one way, then shifts his body the other way, the actual movement, that transfer of balance is from one leg to the other as a hopping action. Do you go backwards when you play these sports, when you play football, if you play basketball, hockey? Yeah. So you do all of those lovely movements, side steps, all of those fantastic movements. Then we look into the green box, which is psychological. So psychological in football, we start to look at things like decision making. So when and where might I perform an action? We start looking at things like, let's go into social for a second. So in social, things like communication skills. And again, communication skills doesn't always have to be someone that's constantly talking on a football pitch. There's things like non-verbals as well, so hand signals, gestures, eye contact, lots of things like that. So
your computer can't even find my hotspot.
So when and where is another one. So when we start talking about our favourite players, we've got a list, a comprehensive list of things that make up these players. We might think, and I certainly did when I first started playing football and I first started coaching, that it was just this list here in the technical box. But as you can see, there's lots of other things that you're going to need also. Okay. Oh, sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm back.
Yeah, no problem. So don't worry about the PowerPoint, Os, that's fine. We're just moving it on. So hopefully everyone understands that when we talk about the four-corner model and the four corners, really think about the technical side of things, so stuff with the ball. What are you doing with the ball? And that's the part really that everyone that likes football focuses on, probably too much at times. A lot of sort of talent scouts will look at, okay, what are they doing when they haven't got the ball? So those physical returns, the hopping, the skipping, the jumping, all of those things are equally as important. And some of my favourite players when I was growing up were very, very good in the red and yellow boxes. They were amazing in the red and yellow boxes. And I saw someone who's played at the top level in the Premier League and will tell you that you need something in the other two as well. So you need to make good, clear, concise decisions at the right time. So there's plenty of people that I know with lots of tricks and skills that can take on players, but do they do that at the right time in the right place? Socially, what's happening socially? Is it about me screaming and shouting at players all the time? Because there's a player called Luka Modric who's played in a World Cup final recently that if you watched him play for 90 minutes, you probably wouldn't hear much come out of his mouth. But he's been a captain of a World Cup team, a team that's played in the World Cup, sorry. So he relies heavily on body language, gestures, non-verbals, all of that kind of stuff. So for me, I thought that was important to share when we start looking at the makeup of a player and what that player might look like. Any questions so far on that? I'll say you guys can shout them out, it's not a problem. Any questions before we move on?
Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some questions. Obviously, I know you do a lot of coach education work. Yeah. And I wanted to say, what are some of the trends that you're seeing from up and coming emerging coaches? Has there been a shift in the way that coaches are starting to develop their ideas and implement their ideas? Has that sort of stereotypical old school approach, is that being left behind, or is there still an element of that in what you've been teaching?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Austin. You guys, if you come with me, and I will show you our amazing football pitch that we got set out there. If I can get out there, I will do, because I think you'd enjoy it. Guys, can you see? Let's have a look. I'll see if I can turn the camera around. It's a really good question, Os. So a lot of coaches now, and probably the generation that's on this call, will be familiar with strategies, will be familiar with tactics. And we kind of call you guys the FIFA generation. It's a really cool FIFA generation that are used to playing FIFA, that are used to coming up with strategies, that are used to coming up with formations. And I really believe us as coaches, we really need to give give over some power to some of you guys, because you've got so much knowledge. So my point is, lots of teams and coaches now want to play out from the back. That's their way of playing out from the back. So the goalkeeper will get the ball comes into a fullback, let's say, and then there's a word that we use, or some coaches use, called recycle. It goes across, and out the other way. Really, primarily just to shift the other team around and try and find pockets of space to advance up the pitch. So if you imagine that the pitch is divided into thirds, you'd have 1/3 here, 1/3 here, and then you've got the attacking third also. And I've just looked at a conventional, if you like, 4-4-2. What some coaches miss, I think, is putting the individuals first and putting the players first, and actually looking at the makeup of their team, and as individuals, as players, who needs what, because the purpose of that exercise before should illustrate that we're all completely different. Some people would have seen the tube going under the bridge. Some people would have seen it coming out. Some people would have seen actually there was a dolphin in that rose. Some people wouldn't see. So what? We're all completely different. Yeah, I played in teams where the manager or the coach would just label us all as the same. And we're not. We're all at different levels, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I suppose my point, going back to the coaching side of things, is, you know, if we knew our players, it might be that we shape our strategies and formations accordingly. So most teams now, to answer your question, will play out for the back. And my question to them then is why? It's the why question. And can they articulate the reasons why they might play that way? If they can't, it might be then they need to go back and rethink and come up with, some key values, some things that are key to their team going forward. And that's where I think the generation of coaches and players on this call will be amazing, because it's the FIFA generation. You guys are used to playing FIFA, all of those games on the consoles, and you can see things sometimes quicker than we do also. Just while we're on this, I just want to illustrate a point also before we start getting the footballs out. If I put here, this is a player called David Beckham. And I want to make this point because coaches and managers sometimes use a lot of jargon. And by jargon, I mean some words that almost like lazy words, really, that are bandied about and thrown about. But sometimes, as individuals, we don't know what they mean. So, for example, I used to play right back, and I know that Osei did as well. So my managers, when I was 8 to 9, would scream and shout at the side things like "open out." So open out, I didn't understand what they meant. I did not have a clue what they meant. So an easier way for me to explain that would be seeing both goals. So can you get somewhere where you could see this goal and where you can see this goal? Guess what? You're opened out. You're in a position where you can see both goals. You can see where the ball's traveling to, the distances, the times. You can see also if there's opposition. If I just flip that over, if there's opposition, sorry, David, if there's opposition trying to put pressure on you, but you're in that lovely opened out position where you can see both goals. So for me, that's one thing. And I want it to, if you take nothing else away from this session today, just think about that. Am I in a position where I can see both goals? And wherever you are on the pitch, if you're playing in goal, if you're playing there as a centre back, and you're receiving the ball, are you in a position where you can see both goals? Going back to that fullback position as well, if you could only see one goal when you receive the ball, you'll all understand the problem is if there's a member of the opposition closing down and putting pressure on and pressing, and you open out then, now there's a problem. So those little things, and I say that because I really wish I was exposed to key information like that at an early age, because it would have really changed my game. Wherever you play, even if you're up the field in the next third and you're in these midfield areas, the top players will do it. They will get half turn, or they will get open, as we call it, in a position where they can see both goals. And they can be so much more effective. And you can see them then drifting into these sort of areas in midfield. And all of a sudden, they've got so much time and space that will enable them then to play their next move. Any questions on that, Os?
No, I think it's a great point. And I think for coaches, especially for me, what I found was really useful was starting with the really young age groups, because when you're working with 7 and 8 year olds in particular, you have to explain things in so many different ways to make sure that people understand. Because if you ask a player if they understand, 9 times out of 10 a player will say yes, they understand, and then they'll go and do it wrong. And obviously, as coaches, you have to be aware of, even though they've said they understand, watch and check to see if they understand, because they'll say yes just because they don't want the embarrassment of not being able to get it.
Oh, sorry, that's a fantastic point that you make, because, and again, that's why I want to reiterate why I put those slides at the start. We are all different and we all learn in completely different ways. So when I was 15 and I was playing at my first non-league club, a coach spoke to me in an auditory fashion. So he talked to me for 15 minutes, or to us as a team. I want you to get the ball, get it out wide, play it up to the first front man, then spin up, and all of this jargon. And I did not have a clue what he was on about. But as you alluded to, Osai, then, would I at 15 have raised my hand and said, Coach, can you explain it in a different way because I don't understand? Answer, no. Why? For fear of being embarrassed and ridiculed by my friends. So I want this generation of players to be comfortable and be selfish with their learning. Be really selfish and say, hold on a minute, I'm here for this hour, whatever it is, to improve myself. If there's any coaches listening, take that information. How can you have that player leave the training facility having learned maybe one thing? It's got to be a safe and friendly environment to encourage learning to take place. So that's why I've put this visual here today. Some people on the call, if I explained everything I did in the last 5 minutes in an auditory sense, would have got it. But if you watched, I deliberately spoke about it and showed you a visual as well. Some people are kinesthetic learners, which means they need to be on the move and actually doing things in a practical sense, and that's how they learn. So if your coaches aren't doing this and you're not learning that way, please ask your coaches and question them if the environment's right, and ask them, maybe can they explain something in a different way? And it's our job as coaches, as practitioners, to make sure we do all those things for learning to take place. So it's really, really important. Just moving on, I've just got some key cards here before we get the footballs out. So I've just picked some key cards which I think are really important for all this to take place. So the first one, as you can see here, is where are we? There. To be flexible. And what I mean by that is there might be a position you play now. Also, I don't know if you started playing at right back. I certainly didn't start playing at right back. And in my generation, I wanted to be a striker. I wanted to be the one to score all the goals. And actually, if I'd have experimented and played in different positions, I'd have had a real appreciation of different roles and responsibilities needed and required in those positions. So a lot of coaches and managers depersonalise the positions now and play numbers. So if you look at the traditional tactics board, then this number here would be, I'm talking about English conventional numbers now. The right back would be a number 2, the 5, the 6, the left back here would be the number 3. Midfielders 4 and 8, right midfielder 7, left midfielder 11, 9 and 10 up front in a conventional 4-4-2 formation. So my point is, if you get to experiment and play different roles in your training sessions, whenever it is, then if the manager or coach asks you, can you go and play the role of the number 10 today? There's not as much of this, well, I don't play there, I only play the number 8. You at least know and have an appreciation of what you can do there. The next card I've got here is good communicator. And I'm really big on this. That doesn't mean that you're screaming and shouting. So a real misconception, I think, amongst coaches that sometimes we shout out things like, we're not talking enough. As I've said about Luka Modric, sometimes it's about hand gestures, signals, eye contact, all of those kind of things. Be imaginative. Use your imagination. If the environment's right, make sure you try out new things, try new tricks, try new skills. Have a football in your back garden and try different things out. Determination, be determined. As I say, keep sticking to things, keep having a go. Do your homework, watch your YouTube, watch all your favourite players, ask yourself questions. How did they do that? How can I do that, etc., etc. Sociable, again, when you're working in pairs or small groups, and I said then the different ways that we can be sociable. It's not just a conventional verbalizing things. There's lots of different ways that you can be social on a football pitch. And if you get all that right, the last one here, you should get some confidence, some form of confidence. And that's whether that's confidence on the pitch, that's confidence in you to put your hand up and say to your coach, can you help me with this? Exactly what you would do in class. Exactly what you do in class. If Miss or Sir's talking and saying something you don't understand, put your hand up and ask those questions. Also, as I get ready for the practicals, any more questions coming in, or is anything from yourself?
Yeah, there's 2 secs.
Mark, I'm not sure whether you caught that, but yes, you've had a question in. It says, what do you think the most important part of football is? So I take it that's probably from a participation or training perspective.
I think it's a very good question. It's difficult to answer. I don't think there is any one particular thing. I think if you can get anything near this and you can get this right and combine some of these things, then you're going to be halfway there. And I really want you to take this away from today and think, okay, what am I doing technically? How does that fit with the physical corner? Socially, what's my decision making like? So I suppose a form of reflection, maybe after training sessions, after games, just taking a bit of time just to reflect. I like the scoring system, so it might be that you give you out of 10, how would you score yourself after training? So if you're honest with yourself and you give yourself a 6, you know what, I give the ball away a couple of times, I didn't track back my runner and I had an opposite, a chance to shoot and I crossed it. How can you improve on that next time? Because I tell you now, the top players will reflect all the time. If you look at Ronaldo and Messi, what they do, they're getting video clips and they're watching it back and they're always looking and striving to be the best version of them that they can be. So take something away around the four corners, but also having that time to reflect is key, I think.
Mark.
Any others? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sorry, I had a bit of feedback there. How much would you attribute the approach to the four corners in regard to ruthlessness and that kind of mentality for all four?
So I think we can't come away from that sort of individual ability. So again, you look at those top players technically, let's look at it. They can pass a ball, control a ball, head a ball, dribble a ball, they can do all that. what you need to do is be ruthless and spend equal time on each of those. So if there's an area that you think, you know what, I'm quite comfortable with this, I can pass a ball over 5 yards, maybe look into the next corner and just look at your decision making. So technically I can do that, but let me spend a little bit more time in the next training session thinking about the when and where aspect. When can I play that pass in? Can I play a pass? If I just go back to the board a sec. And my favourite pass is that pass. The pass that splits 2 players. So can you play a pass that takes 2 players out of the game? Can you play that pass? So first you need to recognise it. If you're this player, you need to recognise the pictures changing, and then you need to pop in here to receive the pass, which takes 2 players out of the game, and then you can advance up the pitch. So again, the point of that is that falls under the psychological aspect. So it doesn't matter how good a passer you are. You could pass a ball like Messi, dribble a ball like Messi. Are you spending equal time on the psychological aspects? Are you recognizing when that picture is there for you to play that pass through? Are you spending equal time then in the social corner? Are you really helping your friends out by either communicating verbally or the lovely non-verbals, or just showing them with your body shape? I can show with my body shape that I'm ready and in a position to receive that pass from you. And then the physical aspect. What's your range of movement like? The distances that you're covering, the distances to go and receive a pass from someone. What's the depth like when you're getting that ball? So there's a lot to this puzzle. But you need to try and spend equal time as much as you can in those corners. And if you really want to challenge yourself, look at your areas of strength and your areas that you need to perhaps work on. Okay, Osai?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And just last one, because I know you only got 20 minutes to go. I was going to say, how important is it, do you think, for players to pay attention to the coaching aspect of the game? Because obviously as players, they just focus on going out on the grass and playing. But I know, for example, Dutch players, they kind of think like coaches as well, even though they're young. Like they understand tactics and they understand what's required in a deeper sense. So do you think that's something that English players could do more of, or do you think it's not relevant for them right now at a younger age?
Okay, so a younger age, so 5 to 11s, I think that the focus should be on playing matches, playing games. So when I was 8 and 9, I would spend times running around a football pitch. I look and reflect now and think, why did I do that? I think it would be okay if I was training for a marathon, or I was training for the 8 or 1500 meters, but I'm training to play a football match, and a football match is random. I don't know what's going to happen in the football match. I can't predict it. So we have constant practices in a training session. So a constant practice, if you imagine with a football, if I throw the ball to Osai catches it and throws it back, that's constant. So the success rate with a constant practice is through the roof. It goes really, really high. The success rate goes really high. Decision making in that blue psychological box comes right down. So you flip it into a game now, and those two things change around. Success rate is lower in a random practice. A random practice is a game, but my decision making is higher. I'm forced to make quick decisions all of the time, and there'd be 3, 4, 5 things going through my head before I play that next move. So in answer to your question and skirting back round again, Osai, I think it depends on the coaches and the coach's level of experience. Certainly if you're between the ages of 5 to 11, for me, you have to be playing matches. We call it whole part whole. So you play a game to start. We play a game to start. Did I, at 8 years of age, need to run around a pitch 20 times and do press-ups and sit-ups? No. I needed to be exposed to what's going to happen on a Sunday when I played football. I needed to feel what it was like to receive a ball, but under pressure with someone trying to get that ball from me. All of those kind of things. So I play more random practices. As you get older, obviously, your body's changing. You need to stretch. You need to stretch your muscles. You're going to be exposed to strategies and tactics. We talked about the FIFA generation, so you guys will be experts at this anyway. And you really need to hone in on them. And the reason why is because good coaching should replicate what's going to happen on a Saturday or Sunday. It should match what's going to happen. So there's not much point in me saying to you, run around the pitch 20 times and do lots and lots of constant practices, because on a Saturday or Sunday, the game's not going to look like that. Equally, then there'll be strategies and things in place where you really need to have a look and try and understand what the coach is saying in order to try and make that work on a Saturday or Sunday. And that's what the coaches look for. Because if it's something that you're not doing and not transferring it over, then there may be a problem. There's a disconnect between what you're doing and what the coach has asked you to do.
Cheers, Mark.
Okay, guys, look, that was kind of a heavy theory-based part to that session, but I felt it was important, and I really, really, really wished that I understood about the seeing both goals bit from 8 and 9. I really did. It was too late for me at 16, 17 to really appreciate it. Similar with, we can probably show you here now. Do you know what, Osso? I will have a go at coming out into the garden. Just let me know if you can still hear me.
Yep.
And you can see all right?
Yep, all good.
Okay. So similarly with receiving the ball on the back foot here. So we
Mark?
Yeah.
It might be worth, I know it's tough, it might be worth explaining it a bit closer to the camera so we can hear you, and then backing away to demo.
Yeah. So similarly with receiving the ball on the back foot, so if we're talking about being opened, we need to receive the ball with the furthest foot away to be able to then advance up the football pitch. So if we can see, there's both goals here. If I receive the ball on the closest foot and I'm travelling this way here, then it will take me extra touches to get the ball forwards. If I can let the ball run across my body here, then with one movement, I'm open and I'm attacking the other goal. So again, if you think about the four corners, that comes under the physical movements. It's thinking about the shape of your body when you're preparing to take the ball and advance up the pitch. Okay. So if you've got a football, grab your footballs. So we're just going to focus on that technical part that we spoke about. So being comfortable with different parts of your body, using both feet, using different parts of both feet. And these are little practices that you can practice on your own. All you would need is a football. That's all you would need. Okay, so first one, I can't see outside, but has everyone got footballs? Access to a football?
Looks like I can see 4 people with footballs. Guys, if you do have a football and you'd like to share your screen, it does really help the coach. So, you know, if you'd like to show your screens now with your footballs, it really does help, and it makes for a better session and you'll get more out of it. So that's a request for me. But apart from that, Mark, you've got about 4 people in the shot that I can see.
Fantastic. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is hold the ball in our hands, and we're just going to kick it up and catch it, because eventually we're going to go around our body. So we're using the laces. I'm using the laces of my right foot first of all. I used to call this, if you remember, a player called Maradona, the Maradona 7. The likes of Ronaldo, Messi, these players would always practice this kind of stuff. So it's laces, thigh, and it's important it is your thigh, not your knee. If it's your knee, the ball will bounce off out of control. foot, thigh, shoulder, head, shoulder, thigh, foot. So it just goes up one side and down the other side. So have a go. And whilst you're having a go, just remember that we're all different. So if you want a challenge on this, do you have to catch it each time, or can you put 2 of those movements together? Can you put 2 together and then catch it after? Or a bigger challenge is to see how far you can get without catching. Or if you're happy with just catching it after each one, that's absolutely fine. See how far you can get around. Okay, that's just one idea. This time is one of my favorites. So again, we're working different parts of both feet. I'll show you here. So we're going outside of your foot, laces, inside of the same foot, transferring it to the other foot, outside, laces, inside. Then, as a challenge, you might put a bounce in after each one. Outside, laces, inside. If you can do that, transfer it over to the other foot. Outside, laces, inside. So whilst you're practicing, just some little techniques that you can really help to develop that technical box. And you can practice these in isolation. You can practice these by yourself. And I believe that they will help and aid your overall game in months and years to come. So the first one was around the body, 7 points all the way around. The next one, I used to call this one the Gianfranco Zola. If anyone remembers Zola, fantastic player, used to play for Chelsea. But yeah, outside, laces, and inside. Let's move it on a little bit now, and we're going to look at different ways of getting the ball into our hands without physically picking the ball up. So it might be things like this, scooping it up. It might be things like this, jumping up. It might be things like this, here. And again, one of the cards that I showed you was about being creative. Try out different ways. You all have different ways of flicking that ball up and catching it in your hands. So have a go at some different ways. Lots of different ways that you can try. And I think also in this generation, you've got the likes of YouTube and the internet where you can really go on and experiment with these different things. Are they practicing us?
Yeah, they're going at it. Someone's even in the road, so please be careful.
Please be careful.
I'll see you in the road. Mark, how are players still spending time on this in the academies? Because I remember as a kid, you know, we'd spend hours on this, just trying to different ways to keep it up, and we play around the clock to see how far up we could get to. Is this something? Is there time for this in the coaching curriculum, or is it sort of a forgotten thing?
I'm not in the academies enough now to be able to answer that question, but I know exactly what you mean. I find it quite odd sometimes with myself that, you know, I grew up doing this stuff because of the generation was different, society was different. I didn't have a computer. I was outside most of the time, which those things have changed. But there's plenty of players that I see at that level that can't do the sort of tricks and skills. I know the game's evolved and it's moved on a little bit, but I don't think enough time is spent on it, I'll say. If you look at the super players, I call them super players, the Messis and Ronaldos, I think they would have dedicated a lot of time. And if you think about one of those cards that we held up was determined, you know, really being determined. And is the weather nice? If you've got a back garden, can you pop out there and practice? Can you maybe forego playing on your console for 20 minutes whilst you go and practice. Yeah, I think it's essential. And also, there's a word that Let Me Play use quite a lot, which is inspire. And I think, you know, we're here doing this give back to try and inspire you guys, but it might be that you can inspire others as well. There's nothing better than being able to show someone a trick or a skill that you can do and you've mastered. I might have one or two things that I'm all right at, that I just show people all the time, and it blows them away. And I think, surely you could do the same with a bit of practice. So for me, it's paramount, I'll say. And again, looking at the four corners, it comes heavily in that technical box. So, you know, if nothing else, it might be after this little talk that you have a look at those four corners and you just see where you are. Write the things that you think you're good at, and write the areas of development that you need to work on also. Okay, let's move it on. So this time we're just going around the body with the ball. So I'm going to back spin it so it travels around my body. And it's always the people who struggle doing this that say to me, what's that got to do with football? But if you think about, again, I'm using Messi and Ronaldo a lot today, but if you look about them and their low center of gravity, and they use their core muscles a lot, and they're bending down and they're transferring the weight to go in a different direction. So you can start off with holding the ball in one hand and sending it around your body here. If I can do it here, it might be easier. So from one palm to the other, here, try it from left to right, right to left. And when you're confident at that, try and let the back spin of the ball just take it around your body. As an additional challenge, you might do it from kicking or from the floor. Serve it up that way. Might be for kick-ups. So again, really works on those core muscles. And I'm confident that if you practice this, you'll be able to do it in no time, just from one to the other. And the backspin alone will take it around the body also. Okay. Have a go at that. Let me know how you're getting on.
I think the difference as well, Mark, we would have had less to do growing up, less options, but we would spend all day doing something like this until you master it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't give up because I've got computer games to go and play now, or there's something on TV now, or, you know, someone's picking us up to take us somewhere. It would be you and the football, and that's it. You just got to get on with it. And it is from a different generation. So I'm sure, Mark, if we were in this generation, we'd be exactly the same as these kids. We wouldn't be any different, but it's I think it's a shame.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you've got aspirations of playing at the highest level that you can, you know, think of some of those cards that are held up. But, you know, that determination one is, if it doesn't work the first time, it's not about just chucking the ball and saying, I can't do it. I just think if there's a negative for me in this generation, it's, I can't do it, so I'm going to leave it. I walk off. Whereas the top players have that steely determination just to say, I'm not going to let this beat me. I know that I need to practice and practice and practice. It's whatever it is, I'll say. Whether you're a pianist and you play the piano, I can only play the basic keys, but I'm sure if I practice and practice and dedicate time to it, I might be all right. If you like cooking, sometimes you've got to really experiment with your dishes, with your foods. It's not the first dish that you bring out. You look at it and think, well, actually, it needs a bit of this and it needs a bit more salt or whatever it may be. You've got to go and really add the time and put the work into it. But I think some of the positives, I'll say, also are things like, you know, this FIFA generation that I talk about, because when I go out and I observe coaches, the knowledge, the technical knowledge of some of the players, and I'm talking from the ages of 6, 7, 8, in terms of tactics and strategies is up there. And I think as coaches, we need to really involve our players in our sessions. And I think someone who does it really well is England's manager currently, Gareth Southgate. Somebody who does it really well. He'd actually ask the players how they want to do something. I'll give you one example. It was, and I apologise if I'm getting too technical for some, but as a midfield three, how were they going to go and put pressure, or if you think about FIFA pressing, how they were going to press the opposition, how are they going to do it? So do they just all go, or does one go? We call them triggers. So does one go, which triggers then the other one and the other one? But instead of saying, this is how we're going to do it, he asked 3 of the top players how they did it in their clubs. So when you play as a midfield 3 in your Premier League clubs, how do you do it? So rather than having one way of doing it, straight away he's got probably 4, because he's got his own way, plus their 3 views. So surely that's better, isn't it? And it's the same with like set pieces and free kicks and things like that. One manager, asked the players, let's say 10 players, how they did free kicks, attacking free kicks at the previous clubs that they worked at. So all of a sudden, the coach has got a bank then of all these free kicks from 10 players times, let's say, 5 clubs that they've been at before. He's got this complete bank of all of these lovely set pieces, rather than just carrying the same ones and the same ones around with him all the time, because the game evolves, and that's where you guys are great. Because unfortunately, Osai, you and I, we've had our time. We've had our time of playing. You've obviously played at a fantastic level, but our time's gone and our generation's gone, and the terminology's changed. It's different. Strategies are different. Formations are different. Also, when you played, it would have probably been 4-4-2. You would have played as a right back in a 4-4-2, or if you were experimenting, it would have been a 4-3-3. Completely changed now. I think one of the most popular formations is 4-2-3-1. It's just changed. This just changed, and I think as coaches, practitioners, teachers, whatever you want to call us, we need to adapt with the times. Okay, how long we got, Os?
Totally agree. Yeah, just a couple of minutes left, Mark. So to be honest, unless you wanted one to show one more skill, yeah. It's up to maybe one more skill, and then we're done.
Yeah. Okay. I just think the last one is the classic catching the ball behind the neck. All these things I think really help us. But I think start off with placing the ball behind your head and trying to balance. See how long you can balance there for. Up, and then obviously progress to trying to serve the ball up by throwing it up, and then maybe progress from having that ball balanced on your foot and then bringing it up that way. Just different ways really, and I always try and give different examples, different ways of doing things, because we're all completely different. And one of my slides, just to conclude really for me before we see if there's any questions, was where do you keep ketchup? So if you like ketchup, I like ketchup. My wife likes ketchup. Where do you keep it? Because we keep it in 2 different places. Do you keep it in the fridge, or do you keep it in the cupboard? And it sounds a ridiculous question, and you probably think, what has this got to do with football? But again, it's an illustration of how different we all are. I like to keep ketchup in the fridge. My wife might like to keep it in the cupboard. Who's right? Who's wrong? So I think that's one of the key messages to take away from this. We're all completely different. We think completely different. We act completely different. We're all different technical abilities. You've just got to focus on you. Be selfish with your learning. Think about the 4 corners to try and improve and better yourself when playing football or other sports, because it does transfer across. Think about these. And again, just think about some of those key points that we spoke about in terms of receiving the ball on your back foot versus receiving it on your safe side, and being open rather than closed. So to really simplify it, can you get somewhere where you can see both of the goals? If you can see one goal only when you're looking at reception of the ball, there might be a problem. can you get somewhere where you can see both goals? And do you know what? I think if that can stay with you throughout your careers, or if there's any coaches that you can transfer that to your players, I think that would be a big help. It would be one of those annoying little sayings that sticks with you. Can you see both goals? And you'll probably look back in 10 years' time and just be laughing to yourself, because it would really, really help you out.
Nice one. With the catch-up question mark, I think we both know who's right in that sense. But there's one question here from Ethan that will probably just round up the session. He's asked, how do you practice scanning?
Really good question, Ethan. I think if you look on YouTube, there's a really good clip with Frank Lampard. There's a really good clip with Cesc Fabregas that talks about scanning. And I think it's one of the two. They have about 4 different scans before they receive the ball. So scanning is just about looking away, looking over your shoulder, checking the picture, checking what's around you before you go and ask for the ball. So if I come in and ask for the ball, Offside passes it to me, then I scan, guess what? It's too late. There's going to be someone on me that's going to take the ball away. I then moan at my teammate. You didn't tell me there's a man on. He moans at me, or she moans at me. So it's about checking, a quick check. If you look at Wayne Rooney, he was fantastic at it. Playing as a striker, playing as a number 10, he would drop into some amazing little positions here, where it's difficult for players to go out and get it. Drop into these positions, scan, so check his shoulders, ask for the ball, and all of a sudden he's got 5 yards of space to move into. So to practice, you're in that generation where you can check out YouTube clips and things like that, but just have a go of checking over your shoulders once, checking again, and maybe a third time. Frank Lampard, Cesc Fabregas do it 4 or 5 times in this clip. It's like when you're crossing a road. You don't just cross, but you look once, left, right, and you might look again before you even cross. It's exactly the same, and it will buy you some additional time when you do eventually get possession of the ball. And the frustrating thing is, you might scan 3, 4, 5 times and not even get the ball. That's the frustrating thing about it. But you've got to keep practicing. Strikers, if you remember a striker called Alan Shearer, who's on Match of the Day, famously made 13 different runs to try and get the ball before he eventually got the ball. So again, if you think about the psychological aspect on the 4 corners, you'd almost forgive him after 5 goes. Well, I'm not getting it, what's the point? But he's got to have that determination, that steely determination to keep making those runs to eventually get the ball. So Ethan, a long-winded answer from me, but hopefully that makes some degree of sense to you.
He's given you 2 thumbs up, so he's happy.
Okay.
He's happy. Okay, I think we're just over time, but no, Mark, it's really good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while, so thank you for that. And I always like listening to Mark, guys, because he's got such a wealth of experience, but also such enthusiasm and imagination in what he tries to bring to coaching and teaching as well. So I hope you've taken a lot from that. And yeah, it looks like it's another beautiful day back home. So I hope you guys are gonna go out and enjoy the day. Ethan, stay out of the road. Stop practicing in the road. Can't do that anymore. Find a park. But no, it's good attitude all the same. Okay. Yeah. So Mark, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Guys, we've got a couple of weeks left, so keep tuning in, enjoy, and have a great day. Okay. See you later, guys. Bye.